Some lies are small, a white lie about why you're late, a half-truth about what you spent on dinner. Those kinds of lies live in the margins of people's lives and do marginal damage. What my ex-wife built was not a small lie. What she built was a person. A complete, functioning, walking around human being who had my name and my face and a life she invented from scratch at her kitchen table. And she gave that person to my children as a substitute for the one she took away. My name is Thomas Reed, 56 years old, history teacher at Patrick Henry High School in Richmond, Virginia, for 28 years. I live in the Churchill neighborhood on the east side of the city, in a narrow 3-story row house on North 28th Street with a small porch that faces the street and a kitchen that faces a walled garden that hasn't been properly tended since my marriage ended. I have been divorced for 5 years. I have 3 children. I have written each of them a letter every single Sunday morning for 5 years. 260 letters total, 150, 2 of which are in my filing cabinet downstairs organized by date, and 108 of which exist only as the copies I kept because the originals were apparently not worth opening. I did not know for 5 years why my children wouldn't speak to me. I had theories. My ex-wife Sandra had said things about me during the divorce, things I knew weren't true and couldn't prove weren't true. The specific variety of accusation that floats in the air of a family court proceeding and poisons everything it touches without ever being formally charged or proven. I thought maybe the kids believed those things. Thought maybe they needed time. Thought maybe the distance would close on its own if I just kept showing up. At school events where I was turned away at the door. At birthday parties where my calls went to voicemail. At graduations and recitals and Ordinary Friday where I tried every avenue available to me and found each one blocked with the specific, seamless efficiency of a woman who had been planning this for a very long time. What I did not know, what I could not have imagined because I am not built for that variety of cruelty, was that Sandra hadn't just told my children I was gone. She had told them where I went. She told them I had remarried, a woman named Diane, she said, with 2 children of her own from a previous relationship. Told them I had moved to Phoenix. Told them I had a new family now, a real family, one I had apparently preferred to them. Told them I never asked about them, never missed them. Had signed the divorce papers with the specific relief of a man who was glad to be free. She showed them a Facebook profile. A profile with my name. A photograph she had found somewhere that looked enough like me. A sparse timeline of posts about Phoenix sunsets and the new woman's children's soccer games, and a life that had no room in it for 3 kids in Richmond, Virginia, who were apparently easy to leave. My daughter Claire was 14 when her mother showed her that profile. She believed it for 5 years, and I had no idea it existed. Let me tell you about Sunday mornings, because that is where this story lives. At a kitchen table on North 28th Street at 7:15 in the morning, with a cup of coffee and a legal pad, and the specific discipline of a man who has decided that showing up is the only thing left available to him. I started writing the letters the week after the final divorce decree. My own father had written me letters once, through a difficult stretch when I was 16, and he was working in another city for almost a year. 22 letters. I kept all of them. They are in a box in the same attic where I now keep my own children's letters. The copies, the ones Sandra never let them receive. My father wrote me because he wanted me to know he was still thinking about me, even when I couldn't see him. I understood that logic the way a child understands it, which is incompletely, and then the way an adult understands it, which is too late to properly thank someone who deserved to be thanked properly. So I wrote, every Sunday, to Claire, then 19, to Marcus, then 17, to Lily, then 15. I wrote about what I'd done that week, books I was reading. I was working through Shelby Foote's Civil War trilogy that first year, which is the kind of reading that a history teacher finds either fortifying or unbearable during a painful period, and I found it both. I wrote about walks I'd taken along the James River, about the parent-teacher conferences I still ran, about my students, about small things and large things and ordinary things that I thought they might someday want to know had existed. I mailed them to the Chesterfield County address where Sandra had moved with the kids after the divorce. Standard white envelopes, cursive handwriting on the front, each child's name, their address, a 44-cent stamp in the upper right corner, first-class mail, 260 times. I kept copies because I am a history teacher, and history teachers understand in their bones that the facts you fail to document are the facts that disappear. I did not know, in October of that 5th year, that the copies were about to matter more than anything I had written inside them. October 5th, a Sunday, 7:15 a.m. I was at my kitchen table with my coffee and my legal pad, writing the week's letters, one to each child, as always. 3 separate letters because they are 3 separate people, and I have never believed in the group message approach to individual relationships. When my phone rang, unknown number, Richmond area code, but not one I recognized. I almost didn't answer. I was mid-sentence in Marcus's letter, describing a walk I'd taken along Libby Hill Park the day before, where the view over the James had been particularly good in the October light. Something made me pick up. Hello? A pause. Then a voice I had not heard in 5 years said one word. Dad? The pen in my hand stopped moving. Claire. My daughter's voice. Not angry, not cold. Cautious. Young. Careful in the way of someone who has made a decision and is only now understanding the full weight of what the decision means. Claire. My voice came out steadier than I had any right to expect. 28 years of keeping a classroom calm. You learn to hold your voice even when everything underneath it is not even at all. Where are you calling from? I wasn't sure if you'd... She stopped. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Did you remarry? After Mom and you split up. Is there a woman named Diane in Phoenix? The kitchen was very quiet. I looked at the legal pad in front of me, at Marcus's half-finished letter, at the window facing the garden that needed tending. Claire, there is no Diane, there is no Phoenix, there is no other family, there is no version of me that exists anywhere except in this house in Church Hill, writing letters to you every Sunday morning for 5 years. A pause. Where did you hear about Diane? Another pause. Longer. The kind that has weight in it. Mom showed us a Facebook profile. When I was 14, it had your face and your name, and it was a whole life, Dad. Posts about a new family, about Phoenix, about... The silence on the other end of the line lasted 11 seconds. I know because I counted them. Welcome back to Sweet Family Revenge. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and subscribe. You're going to love it here. What Claire told me next, I will try to describe accurately, the way a history teacher tries to describe a battle. Not to dramatize it, but to make sure the sequence of events is clear. Because the sequence of events is what makes you understand how something this large could happen at all. Claire was enrolled in a community college digital literacy course. The course was taught by a professor named Dana Walsh, a meticulous, methodical woman who assigned practical exercises alongside the conceptual curriculum. The previous Thursday, Professor Walsh had distributed 3 social media profiles as an in-class exercise. The assignment: verify whether each profile was authentic using publicly available tools and metadata analysis. The profiles were randomized among the class. Claire had been assigned what she later described as an obvious one, a profile so sparse and inconsistently maintained that she expected to verify it as fake within 20 minutes and move on. She was correct that it would take 20 minutes. She was wrong that she would be moving on. The profile used a photograph. The photograph had metadata. The metadata traced to a stock photography library. She had been looking at a stock photograph for 5 years, believing it was her father's face. I want to be careful here. I want to tell you exactly what Claire told me she felt in that moment, because it matters. She didn't tell me she felt rage. She didn't tell me she felt vindication. She told me that for approximately 30 seconds she felt nothing at all. A complete, clean blankness. The specific response of a brain that has been handed information it does not yet have a category for. And then she typed my actual name into a search engine for the first time in 5 years. She found my real profile. Years of posts. Posts about missing my children. A pinned post from the first Christmas after the divorce that read, "To my children, wherever you are when you read this, I am still here. I have always been here." She read that post sitting in a community college computer lab at 9:40 in the morning on a Thursday in October. She called me Sunday. I sat at my kitchen table in Church Hill and looked at the window and thought about 5 years of Sunday mornings spent writing letters to children who had been shown a photograph of a stranger and told it was their father. And I felt something I had not allowed myself to feel in 5 years, because allowing it would have made the Sunday mornings impossible. I felt the full weight of it. It took me approximately 45 seconds to put the weight back down. Then I told Claire, "Can you come over?" She said, "I'm already in the car." My daughter sat at my kitchen table for the first time in 5 years, and I put a cup of coffee in front of her and sat across from her, and we looked at each other for a moment with the specific, careful attention of two people recalibrating who the other person has become. Claire at 19 looked like her mother around the eyes and like me around the jaw. She had a college student's particular combination of tiredness and alertness. The face of someone who hasn't slept enough in months but is always fully present when something matters. She wrapped both hands around the coffee mug. I recognized the gesture. "I do the same thing. Tell me everything," she said. "From the beginning. All of it." So I did. I told her about the Sunday mornings. About the letters. All of them. 260 every Sunday for 5 years without exception. Including the Sundays when I was sick. Including the Sundays after I attended school events where I had been told at the door that I was not welcome. Including the Sunday after the second Christmas, when I sat at this same table and nearly didn't write, and then wrote anyway because stopping felt like the kind of surrender I had decided at the beginning I was not going to make. I told her about the copies. She asked why I kept copies. I said because I am a history teacher, and you document what matters. I took her to the filing cabinet in the study. I opened the second drawer. She looked at the hanging folders, organized by year, labeled in my handwriting, color-coded by child. Her name in blue, Marcus in green, Lily in red. 5 years of Sunday mornings in a steel cabinet in a study in Church Hill. She didn't speak for a long time. Then, she kept them. "There's a box in the storage room off the garage." She told us it was old bills and tax papers. I never went in there, but Marcus mentioned it once, a couple years ago, said he'd seen. I thought he was confused. "I think they're in there." I thought about that for a moment. Not about the anger it should have produced. I had 5 years of practice at filing anger in places where it couldn't interfere with the Sunday mornings. I thought, instead, about what it means to keep the letters. You don't keep evidence of a lie unless some part of you believes the evidence might be needed someday. Sandra kept 260 letters in a box in her garage. She didn't destroy them, she kept them. I had been trying for 5 years to understand what kind of person does what she did. That detail told me something I hadn't known before. It was the kind of person who wasn't entirely sure. "Claire," I said, "don't go get them yet. There are some things I need to do first." She looked at me. "What things?" "Careful things. The kind of things that matter more if they're done in the right order." She studied me for a moment, the look of a daughter seeing her father more clearly than she expected to. "You're not angry." "I am angry. I've just had 5 years of practice at knowing when to use it." I called Bob Finch that afternoon. Bob has been doing family and estate law in Richmond for 21 years. He handled the original divorce proceedings and he understood immediately the significance of what I was describing. A fabricated social media profile using your photograph and identity to represent you to your own children as having abandoned them, Bob said slowly, in the voice he uses when he is writing something down as he speaks. For 5 years. For 5 years. And the letters, you have copies of all 260, filed by date, and the originals are potentially still at the marital residence, in a box in the garage, unopened. Bob was quiet for 3 seconds. "Thomas, do not go to that house. Do not contact Sandra. Do not contact Carol." A pause. "Who else knows about this currently? I need 48 hours to research the digital identity fraud angle and determine the strongest filing posture. Don't touch anything. Don't say anything." I thanked him, hung up, went back to the kitchen and wrote the week's letters. Some habits are load-bearing. If you've been listening for a while and want stories like this to keep coming, it really helps if you hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people never do, but it's what keeps this whole thing running. So thank you, for real. The following Monday, Claire called Marcus. I had asked her to wait, to give Bob his 48 hours. She waited 32, and then called her brother because she is 19 years old and had been carrying this for 4 days, and her brother deserved to know. I don't hold this against her. I would have done the same thing. Marcus is 17. He processes information the way I do, quickly, and then loudly, and then quietly and permanently. Claire told me afterward that he was furious for approximately 10 minutes and then became very still and very focused, which she said was unsettling in the specific way of watching someone you know as a loud person make the decision to become a quiet one. Tell me exactly what you found, Marcus said. Every detail. She told him. The stock photo metadata, the real profile, the pinned post, the letters in the filing cabinet at Dad's house. All of it. After she finished, Marcus said, Grandma Carol knew. Claire stopped. What? 2 years ago. Maybe 3. She said something. I thought I heard wrong. We were in the kitchen and Mom was on the phone in the other room, and Grandma said, and I remember this because it didn't make sense to me. He never stopped trying, you know. I asked her what she meant and she got this look on her face. This specific look, like she'd said something she didn't mean to say, and she changed the subject. I forgot about it. I shouldn't have forgotten about it. A pause. She knew. Carol Briggs, Sandra's mother, a 68-year-old woman from Mechanicsville who made peach cobbler every August and drove the kids to soccer practice, and had been, in my memory of her from the marriage, a decent and fundamentally kind person who I had always believed loved her grandchildren more than she loved any particular version of the family narrative. I had believed that for 8 years of marriage and 5 years of silence. Turns out, I was right. It just took a while to matter. Claire called her grandmother Friday evening. She called from her own phone. In Virginia, a person can legally record a phone call they are a party to without informing the other party. Claire knew this because she had looked it up Monday night in the same methodical, precise way she had traced a stock photograph's metadata in a community college computer lab. She is, and I say this with the specific pride of a father who spent 5 years writing letters to a person he wasn't sure could hear them, her father's daughter, in every way that matters. The call lasted 47 minutes. I listened to the recording the following morning, sitting at my kitchen table with my coffee. Carol's voice is a sound I hadn't heard in 5 years. Warm and southern, and now, in this recording, broken open in the specific way of a woman who has been waiting for this conversation and dreading it in equal measure for a very long time. Grandma. Claire's voice on the recording is careful, precise. She sounds older than 19. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Okay, honey. Carol's voice already had something in it, a carefulness that sounded like someone who knows where a conversation is going before it arrives. Did you know about the Facebook profile? The fake one. About Dad. Claire. Did you know it wasn't real? Another pause. Longer. I found out after, Carol said. Your mother told me. She said it was just to give you all some. She called it closure, said you needed to understand why he wasn't around. I told her it was wrong. I said. Her voice broke. I said it once, and then I didn't say it again. And that's, Claire, that is something I will carry for the rest of my life. The letters, Grandma. Silence. Did you know about the letters? Then, I didn't see them. I didn't. She told me she intercepted them. I didn't know she kept them. Why didn't you tell us? Any of us. At any point in 5 years? And here is the part of the recording that I have listened to 3 times and will not describe in clinical detail because it belongs to Carol, and to whatever she is carrying. But the substance of it was this. Carol believed, or had convinced herself to believe, that the lie was protective, that my children being angry at an absent father was less damaging than my children knowing their mother had constructed a fiction to replace him, that the damage of knowing would be worse than the damage of not knowing. She had been wrong. She had known she was wrong and had not corrected it. And the reason she hadn't corrected it was the same reason most people don't correct a large lie once it is in motion, because the correction would require admitting you knew, and admitting you knew meant being responsible for the knowing. I'm sorry, Carol said, at the end. I'm sorry for your father. Tell him, if he'll hear it from me, I'm sorry. I stopped the recording, sat with my coffee in the October morning light in the Churchill kitchen. My ex-wife's mother had just confessed to knowing about 5 years of deliberate parental alienation on a legally recorded phone call made by a 19-year-old who learned to verify digital metadata from a community college professor who gave a homework assignment without knowing what it would unlock. Sandra had built a perfect lie. The only thing she hadn't accounted for was that perfect lies require everyone involved to keep choosing them, and Carol had run out of choices. I picked up my phone, called Bob Finch. Bob, I'm sending you a recording. There is a version of this story where I confront Sandra, where I drive to Chesterfield County and stand in her driveway and say every word I had not said in 5 years. I want to be honest with you. That version of the story existed in my mind for approximately 4 hours on the Friday evening after I listened to Carol's recording. I sat with it. I understood its appeal. I am a human being and I had been written out of my children's lives by a fabricated person for 5 years. The confrontation version of this story had its attractions. But I am also a history teacher, and history teachers know, better than most, that the dramatic gesture almost never produces the desired result, and almost always produces consequences the person making the gesture did not anticipate. I thought about what I wanted, not what I wanted to say, what I wanted to have. At the end of all of this, I wanted my children. That was the entire list. Everything else was secondary to that singular fact, and any action I took that prioritized my anger over that objective was an action that served me rather than them. So I called Bob Finch instead of driving to Chesterfield County, and Bob Finch did what Bob Finch does. He built a case. The filing package Bob assembled over the following 2 weeks was, by his own description, the most comprehensive parental alienation documentation he had seen in 21 years of family law. It contained my 260-letter copies organized chronologically and authenticated, the original 260 letters retrieved from Sandra's garage storage room pursuant to a court order Bob obtained in 6 days. The fake Facebook profile, with full metadata analysis conducted by a digital forensics firm Bob contracted, demonstrating conclusively that the profile photograph was a stock image purchased from a commercial library, that the account had been created 11 days after the divorce was finalized, and that the account's activity had been maintained through at least 18 months of regular posting before going dormant, and the 47-minute recorded call between Claire and Carol Briggs, transcribed and authenticated. Bob also filed a motion to have Marcus and Lily's therapists, both of whom had been seeing the children for various adjustment difficulties in the years since the divorce, subpoenaed to provide records of the children's stated beliefs about their father's absence, which those records would corroborate had been consistent with Sandra's fabricated narrative. The modification hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks after Bob's initial filing, November 12th, a Wednesday. In the weeks between the filing and the hearing, 3 things happened that I want to tell you about because they are the parts of this story that matter more than any courtroom. The first was Marcus. Marcus called me 9 days after Claire's initial Sunday phone call. Not from a friend's phone. From his own phone, which meant he had unblocked my number, a small action that I understood, from the inside of 5 years of silence, to be an enormous one. He called on a Friday night at 10:15. I was in the study grading papers. Hey, his voice was low, careful, 17 and trying to sound older. It's Marcus. I know. I closed the grade book. Hey, I don't know what I'm supposed to say yet. A pause. I just wanted you to know. I know. That I know it wasn't you. Okay. That's it. I'm not ready to do the whole thing yet. I just needed to say that part. That part is enough. Marcus. It's more than enough. Then, did you really write every Sunday? Every Sunday. Even when? Every Sunday. Without exception. I could hear him breathing, the specific sound of a 17-year-old who is trying to hold something together that keeps wanting to come apart. Okay, he said. I'll call again. I'll be here. Lily didn't call. Lily appeared. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you, genuinely. On the Thursday before the hearing, November 9th, a cold, gray Richmond morning, I heard a knock at the front door of the North 28th Street house at 8:15 a.m. I was already dressed for school. I opened the door and my 15-year-old daughter was standing on my porch with a backpack on her shoulder and the expression of a person who has made a very large decision and is trying not to look like they need to be talked out of it. Can I come in? Lily said. She was 15 when I last saw her. She was 15 now. But the 15 she was now was 5 years larger than the 15 I remembered, and those 5 years were visible in her face in the way that time always shows in people's faces when you have missed the slow accumulation of it. I stepped back. Yeah, I said. Come in. She came in, sat at the kitchen table, the same table where the letters were written, where the coffee was made, where the Sunday mornings had lived for 5 years. She put her backpack on the floor. She looked at the kitchen like a person cataloging something. "You have a lot of books," she said. "Occupational hazard. Claire said you were writing letters. She said you kept copies. In the filing cabinet in the study. Can I see them?" "Open the second drawer." She looked at the hanging folders. Her name in red. She reached out and touched the edge of the most recent folder, the one from this year. She didn't open it. Then she turned around and looked at me with the specific, steady look of her mother's eyes and my jaw, and said, "I'm really angry." "You should be. Not at you." "I know. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how you're supposed to." Her voice caught on something. She held on to it. "I missed 5 years. So did I." She nodded, very slowly, like a person who was making the deliberate decision to receive something they have been keeping at a distance. She looked at the filing cabinet for a long moment. "Can I read some of them?" "You can read all of them. They were always yours." The third thing that happened before the hearing was Carol. Carol called me directly. Not through Claire, not through Bob, not through anyone. She called my cell phone on November 10th, 2 days before the hearing. I recognized the Mechanicsville number and answered. "Thomas." Her voice was careful, old. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not calling about that. I'm calling because I want you to hear it from me directly, what I told Claire. The same words, directly from me to you." She told me everything she had told Claire, and some things she hadn't. The full architecture of what she knew and when she knew it, and the specific moment she had decided not to intervene, and what she had told herself about that decision, and what she understood now about what she had told herself. Her voice broke in the same places it had broken on Claire's recording. She didn't apologize and then immediately qualify the apology. She just said she was sorry, and then she let the sorry stand there without adding anything to it. When she finished, I said, "Carol, thank you for calling." A pause. "That's all?" "That's not nothing." Another pause. "Are the children?" Her voice caught. "Are they going to be all right?" The hearing was on November 12th. Family Court, Chesterfield County. I want to be accurate about what happened and also about what it felt like, because those are two different things and both of them matter. What happened? Bob Finch presented the complete evidentiary package. Sandra's attorney offered the argument that the Facebook profile had been a misguided attempt to provide the children with a narrative that offered emotional stability during a difficult transition. The judge, a methodical woman named the Honorable Patricia Reeves, reviewed the complete exhibit package over 2 sessions spanning 4 hours. She reviewed the metadata analysis. She reviewed the letter copies. She reviewed the originals retrieved from the garage, still bundled in their rubber bands, still in their original envelopes, in the specific state of letters that were never meant to be found. Judge Reeves found Sandra in contempt of the original custody order's communication provisions. She found a documented pattern of deliberate parental alienation constituting emotional manipulation of the minor children. She awarded modification of the custody order to reflect the finding. Marcus and Lily, still minors, were ordered into family therapy with a court-appointed counselor specializing in parental alienation recovery. Sandra's primary custody of both minor children was restructured to 50-50, effective immediately. She ordered Sandra to pay my attorney's fees, every dollar. What it felt like, quieter than I expected. Justice, when it arrives after 5 years of Sunday mornings, does not arrive with a thunderclap. It arrives the way November light arrives in Richmond, low and pale and steady, coming through the courtroom windows without announcing itself. I walked out of that courtroom with Bob Finch beside me. He shook my hand, said, "You were patient." "I was a history teacher," I said. "We wait for the evidence." He almost smiled at that. I did not pursue action against Carol. Bob asked me once if I wanted to, and I told him no. That Carol had broken when it mattered, and that Marcus and Lily needed at least one grandparent in their lives who still knew how to tell the truth, and that the damage of losing her would compound an already complicated family situation in ways that served nobody, least of all my children. Bob recorded my decision and moved on. Carol has not contacted Sandra since the hearing. I don't know what that relationship looks like now. It is not my business to know. Sandra has complied with the modified custody order. She has not spoken to me directly. She communicates through attorneys and scheduling apps, and the specific, efficient silence of someone who understands that the alternative to compliance is a second hearing that would go worse than the first. I do not spend time thinking about Sandra. On the Sunday 4 days after the hearing, November 16th, a cold, bright Richmond morning, I was at my kitchen table at 7:15 a.m. with my coffee and my legal pad. The Sunday morning ritual. 5 years of it, so deeply grooved into the week that the table at that hour had a quality of necessity. I was supposed to be there, the way the house was supposed to have walls. My phone rang at 7:40. Claire's number. I answered. "How are you?" she said. "Good. Good morning." I looked at the legal pad in front of me, at the pen in my hand. For the first time in 5 years, I had sat down at the table on Sunday morning and not known what to write. Not because I had nothing to say, because for the first time in 5 years, I didn't have to write a letter to reach my children. They were already reachable. Claire was on the phone. Marcus had called twice in the past week. Lily was coming over Saturday afternoon. The letters had served their purpose. Every one of them, the sent ones and the kept ones, and the 260 that had sat in Sandra's garage waiting to be found. They had done what I sent them to do, even the ones she never opened. "I'm sitting at the kitchen table," I said, "having my coffee. You're not writing a letter?" "Not this morning." A pause. "The comfortable kind." "Dad." "Yeah. Thank you. For the Sundays. All of them." I looked at the window, at the garden that needed tending, at the October light moving across the kitchen floor the way light has always moved across that floor, whether I was watching it or not, whether anyone was watching it or not. "Claire," I said, "that's just what you do." A pause. "Come over for lunch." "What time?" "Noon. I'll be there at 11:50. She laughed. The real kind, the unguarded kind, the kind you can't manufacture and can't mistake. We hung up. I put the legal pad back in the drawer, made a second cup of coffee, looked at the garden through the kitchen window for a long time. Sandra had built a whole lie and given it to my children as a replacement for their father. She had built it carefully and maintained it for 5 years and believed, perhaps, that a lie that complete was a lie that would hold. What she forgot, what people who build lies always forget, is that the truth doesn't need anyone's help. It doesn't need an attorney, or a custody modification, or a confrontation in a driveway. It just needs someone to look closely enough. In this case, it needed a 19-year-old girl with a homework assignment and the specific patient precision of her father's mind. Claire found the truth. The truth came home. And on a Sunday morning in November, for the first time in 5 years, I sat at my kitchen table in Church Hill without a letter to write. The silence was the best sound I'd heard in years.